Gracie Jiu-Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 99 of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. My guest today is Ralston Gracie, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and son of Grand Master Carley Gracie, and grandson of the late, great Grand Master Carlos Gracie. And we'll get to that interview in just a moment, but let's start with our quote. The biggest lesson I learned from Jiu-Jitsu was how to truly know myself. And that is from Grand Master Carlos Gracie. Okay, before we get into the interview, I wanted to take just a moment and let you know that the Breathing for BJJ online video program is almost ready for pre-sale. Now, I've mentioned this program on the show, but in case you don't know about it, it's a program I've been working on for about a year now. More specifically, it's a 30-day, 30-lesson online video program designed to transform your jiu-jitsu experience through the power of the breath. Now, it takes a biomechanical approach to achieving this by teaching you how to actually work out and strengthen your breathing muscles, which makes them functionally stronger and more efficient. Now, this information has truly been life-changing for me, both on and off the mat. I used to get very anxious when in bad positions. For example, when someone was on top of me, smothering me. And I'd end up either holding my breath or over-breathing. And both of these had the effect of sapping my energy and gassing me out way too quickly. But since I've applied these techniques and strategies, man, my jiu-jitsu experience has become a much more fun, happy, and joyous experience without the stress and anxiety. So I'm very excited about launching this program. Again, the pre-sale will be available very soon, probably in about a week, and the full launch will be in about a month or so. For more information about this, you can go to www.breathingforbjj. That's breathing, F-O-R, BJJ.com. And also make sure to check out our Facebook page, Breathing for BJJ, as well as our Instagram. Okay, moving on. Ralston Gracie is, as I said, the grandson of Grand Master Carlos Gracie and the son of Grand Master Carley Gracie. In this interview, he talks about what it was like growing up with Grand Master Carley as his father and the impact he's had on his life, as well as growing up with Clark Gracie as his brother and what that was like. He also talks about studying holistic health and what that means to his life and what impact that's having on a daily basis in his life and to those around him. He discusses his grandfather, Grand Master Carlos Gracie, and his impact in the creation of Jiu-Jitsu and his legacy, and much more. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. After the interview, stay tuned for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And now, without further ado, let's talk to Ralston. Okay, I'm speaking with Ralston Gracie. So welcome to the show, Ralston, and thanks for taking time to speak with me today.
Thanks for having me, Marty. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Man, you certainly come from a long line of jiu-jitsu royalty and a long line of incredible jiu-jitsu practitioners and instructors, being the son of one of the sons of Grand Master Carley Gracie, the grandson of Grand Master Carlos Gracie, and also the brother of Clark Gracie. So you've certainly grown up in good company when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, most definitely. All very good characters. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nice. So let's just start off by talking about what was it like for you growing up with Grandmaster Carley as your father and Clark as your brother?
It was awesome, man. It was kind of a contrast when I maybe visited other friends and kind of see how they grew up. It's definitely a different tradition, It's almost like something kind of epic, like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or something. Just the way my father, conducts himself and the household and everything. It's just different from other people sometimes. Sometimes he compares our family like the Kennedys or something, kind of a different way of doing things than the rest of the population. But to just kind of point out the strengths in the household, we really focus on carrying on tradition with health, hygiene, and there's definitely a respect around the household, especially with my father. We don't like tease him or make fun of him like I see some other kids doing with their parents these days. It's like, it's not like he was harsh towards us, but that was not really expected.
Okay. So
And
there's a little more of a formality when it came to that.
yeah, a little more poise as far as respect.
Yeah,
And
respect. And it sounds like he held you guys to high standards for sure.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, he didn't directly put a lot of pressure on me as far as, jujitsu, but he definitely showed that it was important when I showed up, and yeah, so. But it's a different viewpoint, I think, because I look at my father's like the strongest man in the world, but that's every kid's perception. But there's a few times when kids are like, "Oh, my dad can beat up your dad," and I just have to shut my mouth because I don't even know where to start. They don't even understand. Like
That's great.
my dad's like the undefeated person in the world. No one can beat him, especially when I was young. He's in his prime still. So,
Right. So it's almost
but yeah.
laughable when you hear other kids talk like that, right?
Yeah, I don't even engage. I just kind of laugh at him. Yeah, sure.
Did you now?
But
You say he didn't put a lot of direct pressure on you, but I can imagine that it's possible. Did you put pressure on yourself to live up to certain standards or kind of walk in his image, so to speak?
yeah, kind of. But I feel like it didn't feel like a lot of pressure. It was just part of the lifestyle. Like I go and visit my dad. I go to the academy. It's where I spend time with him. It's just like a second home, kind of. I didn't like dread going there or anything, but it's just part of the lifestyle.
Nice,
So
nice.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
your dad was the first person to come from Brazil, the Gracie family member to live in the United States and to teach here, way back in the 70s, right?
That's right. Yeah, he came in 73. He came by himself. He's the first person to leave the family, as far as I know, and came with like $20 in his pocket or something. He took a boat over here from the Amazon.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a crazy story. You have to talk to him yourself, and he has to write a book or make a movie about his whole life. Yeah, a lot of journeys he went through.
Yeah, it sounds like it took a lot of courage and adventurous spirit, but he certainly was a pioneer and paved the way over here in the States. He was also undefeated throughout his life, remaining to this day. Obviously, doesn't compete anymore, but in jiu-jitsu as well as Vale Tudo. So,
Yeah. I want people to recognize that about him because a lot of people don't know about his legacy, and he was the best in the family. Once he reached his prime, no one else could beat him, and that stirred up a little bit of commotion as far as hierarchy and things. But he would go to a competition, everybody be upset, be like, "Oh, I don't want to compete anymore." And he
wow.
was so stressless about it. He would just wake up and go there late, and they can't sleep. They're all nervous, and people are like, "Oh, you just look like you just woke up," and he's like, "Yeah, I did."
Wow. Interesting.
Ready to compete. Yeah, but he's very humble, and despite being in his position, he kept me humble. He's very affectionate towards me and my siblings, and he just showed me his kind-heartedness on a daily basis, which you know, I'm not a cocky person. I don't consider myself, and I don't brag or anything. So I think he instilled that in me. But yeah, he's a humble man. He appreciates family, children outdoors, and the beauty and people and nature. So yeah, definitely glad to pass on these qualities to me.
Yeah, sounds like an incredible person. So how fortunate are you, right,
Uh-huh.
to be a son? That's wonderful. Any other life lessons that I mean, I know you said he taught you to be humble. Anything else that comes to mind when you're thinking about him and what he passed on to you, instilled to you, taught you, modeled to you growing up?
Yeah, just tradition, food is a big one. He's always concerned with, what have I been eating? How's my diet? Um, so that was always a priority, which I don't see in a lot of households. And, we'd sit down to eat a dinner and, we'd eat fruit late at night and you just talk for hours. And, it's like talking to somebody from another planet. He's just filled with stories. And, he thinks on a kind of different level, more he thinks on the grand scheme of things, the most, progress he can make, he'll focus on that. He thinks about land and, you know, reaching his highest capabilities as one can reach. So
Nice,
it
nice,
kept a clear perspective for me. Yeah,
wonderful.
always helped. Yeah.
So your brother Clark, how much older is he than you?
So he's 4 years older than me.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's a good amount older so that anything I learned in jiu-jitsu, he already knew. So he was always just kind of playing around with me, but he really showed me the ropes early on in my jiu-jitsu career. Before I was old enough to join the adult classes, he would just work with me on the side and we'd play around and you know, like a good older brother, he'd try to tease me and make me mad and stuff, and so I would go hard with him, and that kind of taught me, not to lose your anger. It does no good, to just lose it and try to go as hard as you can. It's good sometimes as a fuel source, but you definitely have to keep yourself in check because that's not always going to give you control. So
True. So stay
yeah.
relaxed and centered and calm.
Yes, yeah, hmm
Well, that's a good age difference because I think 3 to 4 years. It's nice. He's almost kind of like a mentor to you. But any more than that, it seems like you kind of lose a little bit of that. Well, I don't know, but it appears that longer than that seems just kind of not as connected for a lot of siblings. But 3 to 4 years seems like it's a really great age to appreciate all that.
hmm Yeah, yeah, we can still relate to each other and play with each other, and yeah, it was a really good person to have by my side through my childhood. He, showed me and taught me a lot of ways to look at life. He also had a really good perspective. Like a higher level of thinking and not getting trapped in the normal ways people are trapped in, and taking a step back and be like, wow, I can't believe that person is doing that to themselves.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, he
So
was always a leader kind of person too. He's a really good role model for myself, but also his friends. They would all follow him, and he would
nice.
make the games and everything. So yeah, it was really cool having him around.
Sounds like an incredibly positive influence on you and your growth and development.
Sure.
Did you guys? How old were you when you got started in jiu-jitsu? And did you guys, or did you do any arts before that, or did you jump right into jiu-jitsu?
Um, I pretty much jumped right into jiu-jitsu. By 5 years old, I remember being in the academy training. I knew about it before then, but that's when I remember getting really formal instructions and watching the adults in the academy and everything. But I think he did enroll us in karate for a little bit, maybe for just a few months. I remember doing that, and I don't know why he did that. Maybe his friend was the instructor, but I think he just wanted us to be exposed to something. So I remember doing that for a limited period of time when I was real young. But as I got older, middle school or elementary school, I got into soccer, and from his students, I learned other like striking martial arts like Muay Thai and boxing, and then in school, like middle school, high school, a little bit, I did wrestling, cross country, track. But then eventually I kind of grew away from that because I wanted to focus really on jiu-jitsu. I didn't want anything to take my time from it. And besides that, I picked up some instruments, so self-teaching myself electric guitar and just,
Oh,
having
nice.
fun with the djembe a little bit. It was another learning aspect in itself. I learned how to learn and how to teach myself things through that as well. So
Well, that's
yeah.
cool. Do you still play now?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, not as much as I'd like to, but I'll still pick it up. I did the other night, and it's kind of like jiu-jitsu or riding a bike. You can just, pick it right up. The things you knew really well, you can still do, and then the things you're kind of in the process of mastering, you might have to go back and look at, but I can still pick it up pretty easily, but I have grown away from it a little bit.
That's cool. So like
But yeah.
if you have a foundation in it, like anything else, you can still come back and remember a lot of it. You may not be as sharp on all the aspects, but you can still jump in there and do it like you used to a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Art's in the soul. It's like it's not something you can forget. You could have amnesia, but you might still be able to play the piano still. You
Right.
know,
Right.
it's a different part of learning. Yeah.
So how old were you when you achieved your black belt, and what was that like? Did you know that that was going to happen, or did it come as a surprise? How did that play out?
It's something I always knew I was gonna get, of course, but it did take longer than most people probably, just because, the way my life was set up. I always did jujitsu, but it was something sometimes a little bit like consistent, but not as frequently as I would like. Because my father and mother did break up when I was 5, 6. So I lived with my mother. I saw my dad a lot, but my brother lived with my father, so I didn't train as much as him. But once I got older, I kept training. I did go to college. I graduated college, so that also is a little bit hard to stay, every day dedicated to jiu-jitsu, but I did the best as I could, and I always was teaching, so I was always in the environment regardless. But I didn't always get to train as much as I would like to. So I didn't get my black belt until around 27, but no time is too late.
That's very true. I'm still working to get mine, my friend. So, so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
right.
All right. So you mentioned college. You're actually studying now. Are you back in college, or I know you talked about you're studying
Mhm.
health and wellness now. So where are you studying that, and tell us more about that.
So I actually just graduated the end of last year. Just got my diploma, and my major was public health education, and I went there because they offered a certificate and a minor in holistic health, and that's why I really wanted to gravitate towards. Like early in my college years, I thought, I wanted to maybe go into, it sounds weird for my background, but wildlife conservation and
Hmm.
ecology. You know, I really, I watched a lot of the Crocodile Hunter growing up as one of my role models, and I really put priority on nature and being connected to it. So, I thought, what's going to make me happy is giving back to nature, protecting it, being a steward over it. But as I kind of like saw what the outlook was like, it's still very institutionalized. You're gonna have to work 60 hours a week. They prefer you to be a master's or PhD. It's not so simple just to step in and then be teaching jujitsu on the side as well. So there's some other factors that influenced me to get more into health. It's something I was, dedicating my life more and more towards every day as I got older. So I figured, don't fight the current and just, help people do what I'm doing as well and just be healthy
Right.
and teach what I know well.
So some people may be familiar with the term holistic health, and but if for those that aren't, what is holistic health?
It gets real fluffy. Everybody says, the mind, body, soul connection, it's got to be in harmony and balance, and that's true, but, people say that so much, it kind of loses its meaning, I feel like. But it's being disciplined, it's being aware of what you're eating. It's so many aspects that go into your health.
Hmm.
Uh, Stress level is probably the underlying thing that kills most people. Your stress level, if it's higher than other people's, you're probably going to get disease earlier in life. But it's breathing, posture, it's yeah. So it's so many things that are involved into it. There's so many ways you can go upon healing yourself, but yeah, it's just realizing everything is connected, and
Hmm.
that's what kind of brought me from the ecology, which involves everything in the ecosystem and looking at it from a big picture, and relating it to your body and your environment around you. So,
Yeah.
holistic, yeah. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
I totally am into holistic health, and for years and years, and totally subscribe to. There's so many elements that make up, your health and your vitality and your wellness, and not just one particular way to look at it, or just going medications or something like that. There's so many different things you can do to enhance and increase your health and well-being. So, I think that's great that you're studying that for sure.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah,
Yeah, you
me.
mentioned the stress. I was a stress management counselor for cardiac rehab program at Duke for years, and man, there's nothing like stress to take major toll of your body and your health and your vitality. And so many people just dismiss it. Everybody knows that they should manage their stress and lower their stress and work on it. Everybody, if you ask anybody, if you took a poll, yeah, I probably have more stress and more stress than I need to be, but hardly anybody's willing to actually do things to manage it, you know?
Yes. Yeah, they don't know how or where to start or what's
Right.
important.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. So, do you have any plans on using your degree and your knowledge specifically in the future? What do you plan to do with that, or is that still kind of up in the air?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see it as one thing, as related to jiu-jitsu. You got to keep the instrument healthy. If you're going to tune your guitar, and use it, you got to tune your body, keep it healthy to perform well in jiu-jitsu as well. So, it's definitely related, I feel like. And any students that want to come to me for help, I want to be able to offer them advice and just be a health coach for anybody that's looking to change their life around. I feel
Nice.
like there's, yeah.
Well, we mentioned stress as being a huge issue. What would you say is one of the other biggest problems regarding health and lifestyle in the U.S. right now?
It's the I mean, it comes down to capitalism, but it's lack of convenience, being tied up in a 9 to 5 job, not having time or making the time to, prepare your own meals and just going out to eat on a regular basis, eating processed foods because it's convenient. It's like the society is not set up for us to cook our meals at home anymore and bring them with us. And that's something I have to do, but it's really difficult. If I'm trying to work a 9 to 5, it's super hard, especially if I'm teaching at nighttime too. So
Sure.
I think it's, staying away from, the SAD diet, the standard American diet, and staying away from, you know, corn, soy, and these things that are processed, GMO'd, and, people don't know exactly what's wrong with GMOs, but I know that, pesticides, hormones, antibiotics are bad, so if you're eating things that are only eating those things, then, you're going to be building those up in your body. And, it's just um, bringing it down to, what from the environment is coming into your plate and into your body.
So
So,
true. And that's
yeah,
and that's a big thing. A lot of people just make poor food choices and what to eat, but even ones that sometimes people that are trying to make good choices, trying to eat vegetables or different things or fruits, they aren't aware of the sources that make a huge difference. And or where you're getting your crops, are they sprayed with pesticides or various other things, or like you said, GMOs, other things that affect the quality. So even if you're making healthy choices, sometimes they're not healthy because of these other factors.
right, right, yeah. Yeah, and there's so many different diets and stuff. I don't think you have to follow any particular diet. There's so many different people and different areas of the world. You have to eat differently, and we're a species made to adapt. We follow animals around, across the Arctic tundra, and we can just, as long as there's a food source, we can survive. It's really amazing, the human species. So I don't think there's one diet for anybody. There's the blue zones, it's mostly plant-based, but there's also tests where they took a lot of people that were sick, obese, diabetic. They're living in the States, they're Aborigines. They sent them back to Australia in the bush, and they ate mostly small animals and things like that.
Hmm.
And they lost all their symptoms. Within 3 months, they're pretty much healthy completely. And so I don't think it has to exclude animals, but it should be attentive to what the animals are eating. It should be eating what it's meant to eat in the wild.
Yes, for sure.
Green, yeah, not corn and soy and whatever. And
And grains.
so
No, I
yeah,
agree. I agree. I'm a big fan or a believer in individualized nutrition, and something like vegetarianism may work incredibly well for one and not so much for another. And something like the paleo or that type diet might be really great for another, but not the next guy. So you kind of really have to, well, you need real food, first of all, and you need quality sources. And other than that, I think you got to experiment and see what you feel and perform better on, what kind of diet. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the holistic thing goes into choosing your food too. Was the animal you're eating treated well? Was it, in a stressful, cruel environment? Did it spend its
Hmm.
life in a cage? That's all going to come into it. And only now we're realizing the the hormones we're eating are stress, and that could be affecting us tremendously too.
It's true.
Looking at the fat too, a lot of the from the grains we're getting too many omega sixes.
Hmm.
So if you can look at just making sure, whatever you're eating, whatever fat you have is omega threes, in a healthy ratio. That's definitely important. And if you're eating meat, it had to be eating grass or something green to have that. So
Yeah, a lot of
yeah,
people don't realize that the fat makeup from a cow or an animal eating grass fed, the omega 3 is very high, and it's a very different fat makeup than a grain fed based diet with a cow. So yeah, it
right.
makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, and the World Health Organization, it made a big breakthrough when it came out as most meat being a level one carcinogen, but they haven't gone over whether it's grass fed or eating
Right.
natural diet. They haven't gone over whether that's the same effect. So
It's
it's kind of
true.
interesting.
Yeah, I think it is
But
interesting to look at the studies and what kind of meat they use in those. So because it's not one size fits all when it comes to meat for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Mhm.
Yeah, well, I can talk about this for all day with you, man. Interesting
Definitely.
stuff
Yeah.
for sure. Well, let's change
Uh,
gears for a minute. Let's talk
sure.
about your grandfather. What an incredible man he was. I want you to get into kind of his role in jiu-jitsu, as most people know about it. But I want you to kind of shed some light. But also, did you get to spend much time with him, and what was that like?
Fortunately, when I went to Brazil when he was alive still, I was very young, maybe 4 or less. And I kind of remember meeting him, but that's about it. But I do feel like I know him very well just because of how often my dad talks of stories about him and, the way he conducts himself and, you know, so I feel like I know him very well and, his approach to things is he reacted very different from a lot of people. He's very disciplined and he's like a true diplomat of the sense where, he'd really try not to instigate fights. Even if somebody's trying to fight him, he would win them over and they would become his friend, without fighting him. And it was really amazing how he handled things. Like he just bumped up into a guy one time carrying these bags of rice or something spilled all over the floor. And the guy starts swinging at him because he was so upset. And my grandfather just ducked, he tapped him on the shoulder, ducked again. He was experienced, pro boxer. So, he's comfortable in that situation too. But eventually the guy got tired and then, he just said, okay, have a nice day, and then the guy sees him a few days later and he's walking up to his window. My dad sees him coming to my dad's window and he thinks he's going to attack my dad. And my grandfather's just like, no, just stay where you are. Don't worry. And, the way he approaches people too, he wins them over like that Carnegie book, How to Win People and, how to be successful.
Yeah.
He said, like, how could I be upset? Such a beautiful face, and the guy probably looks like a rough, monsters, guy, but he'll still say these very flattering things to win people over. And, the guy told him, I wish you would at least hit me once that other day because it would have made me feel better.
Oh, that's funny.
But,
So he
but yeah,
practiced verbal jiu-jitsu above everything else, it sounds like.
yeah, right. Like if there's somebody making a big complaint in the line, he would walk up and be like, hey, you have really nice shoes and completely distract the
Oh,
person somehow.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah, just make their day. Yeah. So really impressive.
Yeah. What an incredible person. What else stands out in your mind from what you've heard from your father or anyone else about him?
Um, he had compassion for animals too. I remember my dad seeing some like caged up, I think they were pigeons or bunnies. I think they were pigeons. And my he saw that my dad was hurt by seeing that, and he pulled over and he was like, "Wow, my son has a good heart." But then I heard like a day or two later, he went over and he bought all the pigeons and he let them free. And things like that is really impressive. But
Nice.
but besides that, he was really the backbone of the family. And I feel like once he passed away, the family really fell apart. They went their separate ways,
Mm.
um, because he led everything. It was almost military kind of style the way they conduct the household. 28 kids plus his brother had like 11 kids or something. So, everybody can't eat at the same table at the same time, even though the table's huge. People have to eat in shifts,
Yeah.
and he would go and buy boxes of fruits and stuff for people, and they have cooks in Brazil, and they would label this is for this person and whatnot, and just I think he really taught the family to be hygienic. We always take a shower right after we train, and uh, I don't know, just a lot of things that prioritize our health and keep us disciplined and mentally and physically. But
So you feel like he was the glue that kind of held the family together, and after he wasn't there, things kind of splintered apart, went downhill.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, the UFC came out, and then I was hearing that it was people saying Elio was the creator, and then I was very young at this time, and I was like, well, don't they know that Carlos is a creator, and isn't it kind of weird that now that he's dead, that no one is claiming that now? So that was that just kind of went over my head. Eventually, I got used to the fact, but I remember hearing about that at the time, and it's just real shocking.
Yeah.
That the family doesn't give him the credit that he deserves. But he never claimed to be the creator. He never, wanted the credit really, I think. And he really said that everybody creates jujitsu. It's still developing. It's still being created.
Mm,
And
that's cool.
yeah, he didn't make it out of thin air. He learned it from somebody. He modified it, I think, a lot. I think he was the one of the biggest pioneers and changing it into something where a smaller person can overcome a bigger person using more leverage and techniques. But if you see them doing the techniques back in the day in the black and white videos, it's still pretty like traditional looking. It doesn't look like jiu-jitsu today at all. Of course, it wasn't adapted to the sport competition scene as much, but I really think the kids like Hollish and my father and Carson, they all adopted many different styles of wrestling and sambo and just kept adding to jiu-jitsu and making it better and putting it to the test. So
Yeah, and we're open to the ever involving nature of it.
yes, yeah, right.
I think that's cool because I think it's great, and I think we should remember and pay homage and respect the tradition in the past. But I also think, and some people want to stop there and never add anything else because then it's in some way dishonoring, the legacy, the history in the past. But to me, another way to look at that is another way of honoring all that you've learned and was passed down is to continue to evolve that beautiful art that was handed down and taught to you.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's our duty, to keep building upon it.
Mm,
It's a living thing. It's not something static that stops.
I
Yeah,
like that. That's our duty. I've never heard it said like that. That's pretty cool.
yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So, did you hear or did you see the recent video that was going around? And it may have circulated before as well, but I saw it recently on the catch wrestler talking about his, or someone was talking, he wasn't him actually, someone was talking about the catch wrestler that quote unquote beat Carlos, and then how several of the Gracies, including Carlos and Elio, jumped him as a group. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that at the end.
What's
It
your
was
take on that?
interesting. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was like, what? I don't even know my own family. At first, I didn't know what to make out of it. I'd still take it with a grain of salt, but really, I don't know the whole story and I don't know what happened. And I passed the video along to my dad, and he was talking about the fight a little bit. I don't know if he watched the whole thing, but he said that they had a second match, and then my grandfather had won that match, and that's something that they totally left out. So I kind of feel like it's not telling the full story, or it's maybe bending the truth even to promote catch wrestling. And because I noticed they're really selling a brand, ends, and they're just trying to sell T-shirts and stuff. And I don't know what their main goal is in putting that video out, but I don't care about too much about what happened in the fight. It's a fight. Who cares? Over 70 years ago.
Right.
I was surprised to hear that the allegations against them beating people up with my grandfather's brothers. So I don't know the whole story about that, and if that is true, that's a demon that the family has to face and make sure we don't replicate that. But who knows? Times may have been different back then. There's no excuse for that, but I still have to get down to whether that's actually true. I don't know for sure.
If I agree.
Heard about it,
Anybody can allege anything or tell half truths or something like that. And I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. A lot of people do, crazy stuff in their youth and feel differently later. So who knows if it was a case like that? Who knows if it's fabrication? But like you said, I think too much today, and you'll see it in the media all the time. If there's an accusation, everybody just immediately jumps on it, jumps on this bandwagon instead of waiting for actual facts. So I don't know if we'll ever get all the facts in this particular thing, but I'm of the mind of I'm reserving my, I guess, final thought or judgment, if you will, until there's facts. So I like to deal with facts and not just speculation. So there you go.
Yeah, be a healthy skeptic, And
exactly.
Super jealous about the family, they, it's more, interesting if you see something bad about the family than good about the family. So that's going to get more, publicity and everything, and be better for them. So,
it's very true.
It's a big family. There's a lot to be jealous about, unfortunately.
Right on.
But yeah, I don't know. I got to be a healthy skeptic about it, and see what else I can uncover from that.
I don't know if you saw, but the Valanches did their own video and kind of talking about it, but they attempted to show, okay, here's the undisputed facts, and then here's the Gracie version, here's the catch wrestling version, and the middle part, the undisputed facts that neither side is disputing, that's what's quote unquote fact, and then the rest, then you can err on whichever side you want. You can make up your own mind, but let's at least talk about what is fact and then what is kind of speculation. So in my opinion, they did a good job of saying, kind of staying in the middle of the road, and then saying from there you can certainly make your own mind up or decide which way you're going to believe or whatever. But they kept it pretty balanced. So,
yeah, you can always focus on the bad, and but really, I think you should look at what the Gracies are trying to represent in the long term and later on in life. Their major representation is to protect people, from multiple attackers and from that very thing, So even if they did that, maybe they balanced out their karma by keeping that from happening to other people, Who knows?
Right.
But from what I see, what they stand for, it's from protecting victims and people who suffer from being attacked from bigger or multiple attackers.
True.
So yeah, I'm still proud of my family,
Absolutely, and you certainly should be. So,
Thanks.
So Ralston, what's something that most people might be surprised to learn about you?
Yeah, I was always asked that in school. I'd be like, I don't know, Gracie family, there's always that. But without that, I don't know. I was born on April Fool's Day. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But one thing that, more recently, within the last 10 years, I developed celiac sprue, which is, extremely severe gluten intolerance. If I eat anything, it basically rips up my small intestine,
Wow.
And I developed that in my early 20s, and I don't know why exactly. Sometimes it can happen, like you can develop things like this from traumatic experiences and then they manifest in a year or two, they find. But they also found out that this particular issue can come from an imbalance in the microbiota, and which is caused often by glyphosate, which is in Ready Roundup. So I know, like, I was going to college, I was eating a lot of bread and stuff like that, not unhealthy, but maybe not the most balanced diet. So maybe that could have thrown things off along with stress, and then activated that gene where now, my immune system reacts too much to gluten. And, I know that there's a problem with gluten in the US because I know people with gluten intolerances that can go to Italy and eat gluten just fine. You know, it's much different in other areas, and we've hybridized wheat so much that it's now unhealthy. You know, it's not
Yes.
the size, but it's the actual genetics of it. You know, they mix it with the Japanese and the American gluten, and it's all mixed up now. So,
It's so mixed
um,
up.
yeah.
Have you read the book Wheat Belly?
I haven't read that. No, I
That
haven't read it yet, but I've
that one and Grain Brain are really eye openers. But yeah,
okay.
you hear like say references from way back, like in biblical times. Wheat was looked on as a very positive thing. But if you look at, there's one chromosome difference between male and females, one
Mhm.
chromosome, right, which makes that much of a difference. But if you look at
Yeah.
the wheat from back in that era to now, there's something like, and I'll probably mess the number up, but it was something like 27 chromosomes different. That's how different it is, these days, and how much it's changed. So yeah, you don't really know what you're getting.
Yeah, yeah. That just goes to show the how we're all in the dark. You know, there's such a big difference between how things are supposed to be and how they are now, and we have no education on that. You know, it's not being taught to us.
True.
But yeah, I mean, from that, I've definitely gone on a journey. You know, I feel like I got my health in check now. You know, I might be exposed to a little bit of gluten here and there, but it doesn't really affect my life like it used to. It took a couple of years, I think, to like eat a meal and not feel pain after it. And
Wow.
a lot of research. I landed on some different healers that steered me to eat non-hybridized food. I came across Dr. Sebi, which some people know in the holistic community, but he was against eating hybrid foods, and he's the only person I know who goes with that philosophy. But it's also a vegan alkaline lifestyle where there's just like no processed white grains of anything, no rice unless it's wild rice, everything has to be the way the creation made it, whether you want to call it God or Mother Nature. It's not altered by man. If you can stick with those foods, you're going to do much better. And I found that to assimilate with my digestive system the best. And I've gone in and out of eating meat again, and I just feel like it can be okay sometimes, but it kind of slows down my digestive system. I can feel it digest slowly, and then there's the factor that people don't always buy into also is the acidity factor.
Mm-hmm.
And the way this guy, Dr. Sebi, his name's Alfredo Bowman, but he broke it down to acids. If you're eating animal products, it's going to turn into uric acid. If you're eating starchy products, it's going to turn to carbonic acid. And of course, milk is lactic acid.
Yep.
And these acids break down the mucosal membrane and they create mucus in your body. And just that fact, I've noticed, from eating a clean diet, I know when I go off because mucus builds up, or I get a pimple or something, or who knows. But I'm very sensitive to a lot of foods now. So just having celiac, I think I can tell which foods are healthy, which ones are a little more harder to digest. I mean, at least for me, but I think it goes largely in a general sense too for most people. But following that alkaline vegan diet, just eating a lot of you know, it doesn't even have to be a lot of grains, but if you are eating grains, I'll be messing with quinoa, teff, which is Ethiopian grain, and maybe wild rice, amaranth, if I can, cook it up in a good way. So I go after these indigenous grains, these things that indigenous societies thrived off of, and
Mm-hmm.
that's helped me a lot. And so yeah, I feel like I'm achieving my highest state of health and healing whatever disease or whatever through that. And he also taught me a lot about herbs. So I really specialize in herbs now, herbs that are high in iron, not the heme iron, but the non-heme iron, which is an actual uh, antioxidant. And if you look it up, heme iron, which comes from animal products, is a pro-oxidant. It causes inflammation. And whether it's organic or not, I don't know how that comes into effect. But yeah, I feel better eating off that diet. So
Well,
yeah.
it sounds like you've done a lot of exploration and trial and error and everything, and arrived to kind of what works best for you for now. So
Yes.
commend you
Yes.
on staying on that path and being open to the exploration.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of superfoods, eating a lot of high iron plant things, and getting the oxygen that you need to your cells. Eating things that are made of the molecular structure of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The CHO, and the Chinese know this. But once you're not doing that, I don't know if it's going to assimilate as well into your body. So, he helped people all around the world. And I think anybody can kind of follow that, and it might help them. It doesn't have to be exactly what he did, because it's a very extreme diet, and I don't recommend it for everybody. And, maybe only if you're really sick do you have to follow, his guidelines or his, the foods that he made. But if you just, listen to your gut, listen to your heart, and go after food that nature created as opposed to what man created, I think you're going to do tremendously better.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Well, Ralston, as we're coming to an end here, anybody that you would like to thank or shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people, but mainly my father, for passing down the tradition to me. I wouldn't be the same man I would be if it weren't for him. He really made health a priority for my life. And of course, my brother, he's always been there to hold my hand if I need it and guide me through whatever, and show me what he's discovered, being 4 years ahead of me. And it's just tremendous to be living along the presence of these people. And my mother, of course, she taught me so much integrity and knowing the difference of right and wrong. So, just everybody that raised me and made me into the person I am today, and, infinitely grateful for.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for taking time, letting us get to know you better, and sharing your insight, not only to the history, but your life personally, and the health and wellness, holistic health, and all that. So I appreciate your wisdom and your insight, and for you taking time with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out to me and being curious about the subject and spreading the information on the family. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Long, healthy, and happy life, my friend.
Most indeed. You too, my brother.
All right, really enjoyed that conversation with Ralston. Up next is the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Time now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Let's start with a quote. I must be willing to give up what I am in order to become what I will be. And that's from Albert Einstein. And what an interesting quote, and what a true quote. So often we are reluctant to give up the security of where we are, and what we have to grow into what we could be. The problem with this is that if we stay in our comfort zone, we can't grow. In fact, it's impossible to grow when we stay in our comfort zone, and all growth occurs outside of our comfort zone. And this is tricky because the comfort zone is comfortable. It feels good. It feels secure. But we have to be willing to get out of our comfort zone if we want to grow, if we want to expand, if we want to realize our true potential. We have to be willing to go through the discomfort and fear that comes with change. We have to be willing to embrace the fear of the unknown and have faith that it'll be worth it. So what's holding you back? What's something you want to do or accomplish or become, but you've settled for the security of the comfort zone? Take just a moment to think on this, and then make a decision. Decide on one small step that you'll take today to make this change or accomplish this goal. Stop letting fear hold you back and commit to this now. When you do, I believe that you'll feel more alive, more fulfilled, and more on purpose. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page, and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.